Good morning. Welcome to today's briefing on the current events sweeping across the East Asia region and the country right now.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
We really have an incredibly packed and honestly fascinating agenda for you today.
We do. There's been a massive amount of movement over the last 2 weeks alone.
Yeah. The official title for today's deep dive is Spy Networks and War Games.
The growing security contest in East Asia.
Exactly. And just for the record, as we map all of this out, today's date is March 9, 2026.
Right, and the landscape is shifting almost daily. We're talking everything from very tangible, heavy military deployments to, well, to the highly secretive shadows of international espionage.
It really is. But before we get into the weeds, I want to let you know that this deep dive is brought to you by ProWave AI, powering intelligence.
Which is fantastic software.
It is. And this brief is actually generated by Stylo News, the ultimate AI-powered news application. Now, what makes this specific tool so vital for a briefing like today's is that Stylo News is actually the consumer version of the Stylo Intel Ops software.
Right, and that's a really crucial distinction to make. For a bit of context, Stylo Intel Ops is the exact type of open source intelligence or OSINT engine used for massive enterprise operations.
So governments, the military, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And global business decision makers. It operates by pulling data from over 250 sources, and it translates more than 20 languages in real time.
Wow.
Yeah, it analyzes news articles, social media feeds, regional forums, even video captions, and it turns all that raw, chaotic data into actionable insight in under 60 seconds.
It is an absolute powerhouse of a tool. And what that means for you, the listener, is that you now have unique access to the exact same global intelligence framework that is currently supporting global leaders. You are getting the high-level view right along with them.
You really are.
And our mission today is to use that tool to unpack the past 2 weeks, so basically late February to early March 2026.
Looking at the rapidly escalating military, diplomatic, and espionage events in the Indo-Pacific.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start with the primary pattern emerging from the data, which is, well, it's a massive, tangible military buildup along what military strategists call the first island chain.
Yeah, the hardware.
Exactly. For those who might not, live and breathe naval strategy, the first island chain is essentially that crucial string of major archipelagos.
Stretching from Japan down through Taiwan and into the Philippines.
Right. It acts as a natural maritime geographical barrier. And right now, we are seeing a rapidly expanding footprint along that very specific line.
The geography is everything here. We saw the United States deploy Tomahawk-capable Typhoon missile systems in northern Luzon.
Which is significant on its own.
It is, but even more significantly, they placed anti-ship missile systems on Bataan Island in the Philippines.
Right, and when you look at Bataan Island on a map, the strategic value is glaringly obvious. It is incredibly close to Taiwan and sits right on the edge of the Bashi Channel.
Exactly.
By putting those systems there, you are effectively putting long-range strikes within 1,000 miles of key Chinese maritime assets. It's a very loud, very physical statement of deterrence.
It completely changes the risk calculus for any naval movement in that area.
Right.
Which naturally brings us to the recent joint military exercises that just wrapped up.
Yes, the MMCA.
Right, the 15th Multilateral Maritime Cooperative Activities.
Yeah.
The intelligence reporting heavily flagged this. What really stood out wasn't just that the Philippines, the U.S., and Japan were drilling together.
It was where they were drilling.
Exactly. They didn't just stay in the familiar waters of the South China Sea. They pushed their air patrols and their live-fire naval exercises directly into that strategically critical Bashi Channel near Taiwan.
They are essentially flexing their interoperability in the exact choke points that would be critical in any potential conflict. And it isn't just the U.S., Japan, and the Philippines making these moves.
No, we're seeing broader regional actors stepping onto the board.
Right. Australia recently sent its HMAS Toowoomba frigate to transit the Taiwan Strait, which is a classic move to assert freedom of navigation in international waters.
We also saw the British nuclear-powered submarine, the HMS Anson, arrive in Perth, Australia.
That's for the EU-faced Pillar 2 tests.
And as a quick refresher, while Argus's Pillar 1 is all about getting Australia nuclear submarines, Pillar 2 is about the rapid sharing of advanced military technology.
Like artificial intelligence and quantum computing.
Yeah, and hypersonic weapons between the US, UK, and Australia.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's crucial to understand why this massive scale-up matters on a local and national level for the countries hosting these assets.
It's not happening in a vacuum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Locally, in the Philippines, this increased military presence isn't just an abstract geopolitical concept. It has real-world friction.
Real consequences for the people there.
Yeah, it means restricted fishing access for local communities who rely on those waters.
Yeah.
It also means heightened risks of logistical accidents. Just recently, a U.S. Air Force transport aircraft actually hit a concrete barrier during takeoff from an alternate landing zone in Pangasinan province.
Which is practically inevitable when you scale up this fast.
Right. They were conducting a contingency training exercise, and while it was just an accident with no major casualties, it perfectly highlights the inherent friction of these massive operational scale-ups. You can't move this much heavy machinery around without bumping into things.
Exactly. But nationally, the Philippines is utilizing this momentum to assert its sovereignty quite visibly. They have officially updated and published their maritime maps to legally reinforce their territorial claims.
And the political moves, too.
Yeah, we saw Senator Risa Hontiveros make a surprise, highly assertive visit to Thitu Island, also known as Zongay Island, to deliver supplies and boost local morale.
When a high-profile politician lands on a highly contested outpost, it is a very clear, deliberate signal to the domestic audience and the international community.
It definitely is.
So with all of this allied hardware and geographical maneuvering happening, China obviously isn't just sitting back and watching. The immediate countermoves from the Chinese People's Liberation Army, the PLA, have been incredibly robust.
Very robust.
We saw the PLA Southern Theater Command launch coordinated combat readiness patrols around Huangyandao, which most of our listeners will know as Scarborough Shoal.
And what struck me about the intelligence reports on those patrols wasn't just the deployment of ships, but the layers of the deployment.
It was very complex.
Extremely. These patrols utilized bombers, fighter jets, early warning systems, and anti-submarine aircraft all simultaneously. It is a highly complex, multi-domain demonstration of force.
And on a macro level, we are really seeing the financial reality of this security contest. China just announced a 7% increase in its 2026 defense budget,
which brings their military spending to approximately $276.8 billion.
Yeah. When you dig into the reports on that new budget, they aren't hiding their intentions. That money is earmarked specifically to push back against U.S. influence, aggressively enforce their territorial claims, and bankroll advanced cyber warfare and equipment.
Which is the perfect transition into the other side of this conflict. Because while the warships, the missile deployments, and the defense budgets are very visible, highly publicized events.
There's an entirely different battle space operating completely in the shadows.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We need to talk about the invisible war, the espionage, the internal purges, and the high-tech deception happening in what analysts call the gray zone.
It's fascinating.
Let's start with the drone deception, because this feels straight out of a cyber thriller. Our OSINT sources indicate that since August of 2025, a large Chinese military drone has conducted at least 23 flights over the South China Sea using completely false transponder signals.
Right. It has been deliberately mimicking sanctioned Belarusian cargo planes and British Typhoon jets on commercial and military radar.
What's fascinating here is the sheer sophistication of this tactic. For anyone who doesn't track aviation tech, an aircraft's transponder is what pings radar to say, here I am, and this is who I am.
It's their digital identity.
Yeah. By spoofing those signals, this military drone is essentially putting on a digital Halloween costume. It's a highly advanced form of electronic warfare designed to deliberately confuse adversaries and test their radar recognition.
Many of the top military analysts highlighted in the Stylo intelligence feeds interpret this as a direct rehearsal for a potential Taiwan invasion scenario.
That makes a lot of sense.
They are actively testing how well they can operate a gray zone strategy to blind, misdirect, or delay allied tracking systems. If you can make an adversary hesitate for even 20 minutes because they think they are looking at a civilian cargo plane,
You gain a massive tactical advantage.
Exactly.
And speaking of gaining an advantage through invisible means, there is breaking news out of Manila regarding traditional human intelligence.
The spy network arrests.
Right. The Philippine National Security Council recently arrested 3 Filipino military personnel. According to the reports, they have confessed to leaking highly sensitive military supply mission data directly to Chinese intelligence.
You really cannot overstate how damaging that is. That represents a massive internal security breach for the Philippines.
Lives are on the line with that kind of data.
Absolutely. A supply mission leak isn't just a loss of data. It puts the lives of the sailors executing those missions at immediate risk because the opposing Coast Guard knows exactly when, where, and how they are arriving.
And the diplomatic fallout.
Yeah. Furthermore, it erodes Allied trust right at the exact moment the Philippines is trying to rapidly expand its interoperability with U.S. and Japanese forces.
But it's also worth noting that while China is successfully projecting this sophisticated electronic and human intelligence outward, the OSINT feeds are picking up on significant internal turbulence within their own ranks.
A purges.
Yes. The Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the CPPCC, which is the country's top political advisory body, just purged 3 retired generals. This is part of a massive, ongoing anti-corruption drive spearheaded by the country's top leadership.
And the so what of that development is absolutely critical to the broader geopolitical picture. When you have top-tier generals being suddenly purged from political advisory bodies and the National People's Congress, it creates immediate leadership vacuums and institutional paranoia.
It has to disrupt operations.
Analysts are seriously questioning how these purges might temporarily hamper the PLA's ability to actually launch or coordinate large-scale military campaigns.
And the timing of that internal turbulence is pivotal because the U.S. Department of Defense has just rolled out its 2026 National Defense Strategy.
Right.
If you read the unclassified executive summary, it is heavily, almost exclusively, focused on deterring Chinese hegemony in the Indo-Pacific and maintaining a favorable balance of power through integrated deterrence.
So what does this all mean when you look at the decision makers? The hardware is aggressively moving into place, the spy networks are highly active, and the defense budgets are swelling to historic levels.
We need to map out the competing perspectives here.
Exactly. Drawing directly from the decision-maker analysis generated by the Stylo News engine, while keeping a strictly neutral, objective lens on the situation.
Absolutely. It is vital to understand how each side is justifying their actions to their own people and the world.
Let's look at China's perspective first.
Okay.
Their government firmly and consistently asserts indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea and Taiwan. From Beijing's viewpoint, the joint exercises by the U.S., Philippines, Japan, and Australia are not routine drills.
They see them as provocations.
Yes, dangerous, provocative actions that actively disrupt regional peace. They frame their own military buildup, their budget increases, and their combat readiness patrols as purely defensive measures required to protect their core sovereign interests against Western containment strategies.
On the other side of the ledger, you have the perspective of the U.S., the Philippines, and Japan. They frame all of their actions, from the Typhoon missile deployments to the naval drills in the Bashi Channel, as vital steps to uphold international law.
They're pointing to the Hague ruling.
Specifically, yeah. They point to defending the 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling on the South China Sea and ensuring freedom of navigation in international waters that carry trillions of dollars in global trade.
And Japan's rhetoric has escalated significantly.
It has. Japan's Prime Minister, Sanai Takeichi, gave a very firm parliamentary speech recently, calling the current security environment the most severe since World War II.
That's a strong statement.
It is. This acute sense of threat is being used to justify Japan's historically unprecedented plan to deploy surface-to-air missiles on remote western islands near Taiwan by 2031.
And then, importantly, there is the caught-in-the-middle perspective.
South Korea is a fascinating example here.
They are. They are cautiously trying to balance their ironclad, long-standing security alliance with the U.S. against their incredibly deep economic and supply chain ties with China.
A very tough balancing act.
Very. They are exploring enhanced defense integration with Washington, but doing so very carefully to avoid overly provoking Beijing.
You also have ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. They're desperately trying to finalize a binding South China Sea Code of Conduct by the end of 2026.
Though diplomatic experts in the region remain highly skeptical about that timeline.
Yeah, the deep divisions among member states and the fact that several of them have overlapping territorial claims with each other make consensus incredibly difficult to achieve.
The geopolitical tightrope is incredibly thin right now.
It really is. And as we process all these macro-level government perspectives, it's fascinating to see how this translates to everyday public sentiment. What is the global mood looking like when you synthesize the social media and source sentiment gathered by the Stylo News OSINT engine?
As you might expect, the digital landscape is highly intensely polarized. Pro-allied networks across the U.S., Japan, and the Philippines strongly support the concept of deterrence.
So they're in favor of the buildup.
Right. They frame the military buildup as absolutely necessary to prevent outright aggression. Conversely, Chinese domestic social media networks are fiercely nationalistic. There is strong vocal support for the PLA's actions and widespread condemnation of foreign alliances meddling in what they view as regional affairs.
But when you look at the raw data, is there any middle ground, any common thread linking these vastly different populations?
Surprisingly, yes. When you aggregate the global data and look past the nationalistic rhetoric on both sides, there is a broad common viewpoint that cuts across the polarized networks.
What's the common theme?
There is a deep underlying anxiety about this rapid militarization. Across the board, there is a universal call from the international community and regular citizens for peaceful diplomatic resolutions.
People are worried about a spark.
Exactly. The recurring dominant fear in the data is that an accidental miscalculation, like two ships colliding in the dark, or a tragic aircraft intercept incident, could spark a wider, uncontrollable conflict before political leaders even have time to talk.
Which perfectly brings us to the horizon. We've mapped the hardware, we've exposed the invisible war, and we've analyzed the perspectives.
Yeah.
So what should you be watching out for in the coming weeks? Where is this all heading?
First and foremost on the diplomatic calendar is the upcoming U.S.-China summit.
Very important.
This is taking place from March 31st to April 2, 2026 in Beijing. It is a critical, high-stakes event. We are already seeing preemptive diplomatic positioning from all sides.
Right. For example, former U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns is publicly urging President Trump to strictly reaffirm military support to Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act ahead of these talks.
Setting a very firm baseline for the negotiations.
Exactly. And speaking of Taiwan, we also need to keep a close eye on their internal politics over the next few weeks. Taiwan's legislative yuan is in the process of finalizing their special defense budgets in mid-March.
How they choose to allocate those funds, whether they prioritize asymmetric drone warfare or traditional heavy platforms, will signal their immediate defense priorities in response to this regional pressure.
Finally, you should watch closely for diplomatic lifelines. Despite the high tension, there are ongoing, incredibly delicate negotiations between the Philippine and Chinese Coast Guards.
They are actively attempting to create a memorandum of understanding specifically to reduce physical maritime incidents and collisions.
If they can secure that agreement, it would serve as a crucial pressure release valve for the entire region.
It really would.
It's a massive geopolitical chessboard, and the pieces are moving faster than ever. To truly stay ahead of these developments, to see the patterns before they become breaking news, you need the right tools. And that is where the power behind today's deep dive comes in. Stylo News.
Exactly. We used the Stylo Intel Ops engine to build out the analysis for this briefing, but Stylo News is the app built specifically for individuals. It is available right now for both mobile and computer download.
Think of it as the ultimate cure for information overload. It allows you to customize your own personal intelligence-style briefs.
Instead of just reading a single, potentially biased article.
Right. Stylo's AI sweeps hundreds of traditional news sources and X, formerly Twitter. It translates over 20 languages instantly, cross-references the facts, and links every single insight back to the raw record. It gives you the full, unvarnished picture of what is actually happening.
It's incredibly powerful. It features tools like a location AI bot, strategic watch lists, and custom event search. It really allows you to track weeks-long global trends and emerging flashpoints without getting lost in the noise.
So take control of your global intelligence. Subscribe to Stylo News today to get AI-powered news on demand. You can find them right now at www.stylonews.com.
It really is a game changer for anyone whose job, or just their own intense curiosity, requires them to be well-informed quickly and accurately.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's briefing. We want to extend a huge, warm thank you to all of you for spending your time listening to this deep dive. We know your time is valuable, and we hope you walk away feeling thoroughly informed and maybe a little surprised by what's happening behind the headlines.
We truly appreciate you joining us for the conversation.
Please feel free to request topics for future deep dives. We love digging into the subjects you care about most. And don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms for real-time updates. Before we go, though, do you have one final provocative thought to leave us with?
I do. This raises an important question that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. We spent a lot of time today talking about contested spaces.
Yeah.
If the physical space, like the Bashi Channel and the Spratly Islands, and the digital space, like drone transponder spoofing and espionage, are already this deeply contested, how will the rapid integration of fully autonomous AI decision-making change the timeline of a crisis?
That's a big question.
We know both the PLA and the U.S. military are heavily investing in AI arsenals. Once algorithms are the ones reacting to spoofed radar signals in real time without human input, does human diplomacy even have time to intervene before the first shot is fired?
Wow. That is a chilling but absolutely fascinating thought to end on. When the speed of conflict outpaces the speed of diplomacy, the whole game changes. That is definitely something for all of us to ponder as we watch the horizon. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive. Take care.